What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Drew Hoover, and today is the last day of the draft grades. And I know I've been talking about the draft for a while. It'll be interesting to see how I make my videos in the future about what. I already have a few ideas. I'll start talking about the state of quarterbacks. In particular, I'll focus on Aaron Rodgers as well. But let's get right into this. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe to your Average Joe's Sports Network. And if you have any graphic design needs, please go to Anthony Garcia. He is the man. And his website will be in the description below, www.anthonygarciadesign.com. And now let's get to the NFC South right here. And I'm just going to start with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I give them a B- for their efforts. And to be honest, a lot of their draft, when you talk about, like I said, when you got a lot of the same starters from last year, you wonder what they're going to do. Their first two picks kind of, hinted that, maybe we just need depth because, look at the first pick, Joe Tryon, the linebacker from Washington. I think he would have fit more of a multi-defense fit, but he definitely fits that edge rusher need. When you talk about JPP, I don't know. We don't know how many years he's got left. Dominican Sue is getting up in age. We don't know how much those defensive pass rushers got left. So you add a little youth to there, and then Kyle Trask. If you listen to Concord Sports Network, there was a huge segment about Kyle Trask, even talking to his head coach from Florida, who spent time at Mississippi State with Dak Prescott, and you're talking about how he's totally underrated, and he definitely fits that offense when you're talking about Bruce Arians and quarterback coach and offensive coordinator Brian Leftwich. We don't know how long Kyle Trask is going to be under Tom Brady. It could end up being like Matt Castle or Jimmy Garoppolo, where they wait to be traded away to find their starter job. But still, I think Kyle Trask has a lot to learn. He already has proven a lot performing in the SEC in the year that he had last year. So, other noticeable picks by the Buccaneers. Robert Hainsley, the offensive tackle from Notre Dame. Again, getting more protection right there. They drafted Tristan Wirfs, the offensive tackle from Iowa last year. And so, again, not a lot of needs, just adding a lot of depth. And again, particularly depth to the old veterans that we don't know where their timetable is when it comes to retirement. And so let's go to the Carolina Panthers, and I give them an A, man. They've been doing a great job the last 2 years under Matt Rule, getting the piece of that defense together when they drafted Derek Brown last year and Yetur Gross-Matos. And then this year, they started out by getting J.C. Horn, who, by the way, will be wearing number 8 in honor of Kobe Bryant. And like I said, it just fit the defensive scheme under Phil Snow. Fast, physical, and cause turnovers without allowing big plays. And then after that, they started addressing the offense. They got Terrace Marshall Jr. from LSU, a guy that ran the same 40 as his teammate Jamar Chase, who was drafted number 5 overall. I think they got a good pick right there. Again, when I picture the lineup, I picture Robbie Anderson and Terrace Marshall on the sidelines right there, and then slot DJ Moore right there. And then talk about, I was wondering when they were going to get to the offensive line, because that was one of the needs they were going to address. Then they got Christensen, the offensive tackle from BYU. I don't know how this guy slipped into their lap, but I feel like he's going to be a day one star right there, affecting that right there. Trying to see if there's any other additions from the Carolina Panthers that I need to mention. Also, Tommy Tremble, the tight end from Notre Dame. He's not a conventional tight end. He did more blocking than he did receiving. We'll see how he uses that. Kuba Hubbard, the interesting story about him. Matt Rule's wife was pretty much begging him to get Kuba Hubbard to Carolina. And so they got another running back to be behind Christian McCaffrey. And then finally, Davion Nixon, the defensive tackle and Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year from Iowa. And I don't know if he's going to be that starting lineup, but I'm imagining him along with Derek Brown, like I said, the first round pick from last year. And you talk about the defensive line with Brian Burns on one side and Yetur Gross-Matos on the other. That, I think, is a deciding thing to think about with the Carolina Panthers. Next, I'm going to go with the Atlanta Falcons. And honestly, I give them a C- for their efforts. To be honest, when it comes to the Kyle Pitts, I mean, best player available, that's the safest pick right there. But it wasn't a need. And, I really wanted them to trade back to get more picks, particularly on the defensive side. I've mentioned this before. They got Dean Pease, the defensive coordinator, to come out of retirement. So you got to think that they wanted to make it worth his while, right? But they didn't get a lot. They didn't address it, the front seven until the 5th round. And so, I mean, in the front seven, you only have Grady Jarrett and Deion Jones. That's it. They really focus on the defensive back end, which, by the way, I thought that was already their strongest suit with A.J. Terrell and Isaiah Oliver. They didn't go back and get Richie Grant, the safety from UCF. And I'm trying to think of another name right here. Darren Hall, the cornerback from San Diego State. They did get an offensive line in Jalen Mayfield. I wasn't really a big fan on to begin with, and then he had his pro day. I think he could have dropped even farther right there, but they needed offensive line in general, particularly in the center of that offensive line. They needed someone to protect him, so I imagine him maybe even put a left guard alongside Jake Matthews right there. I just didn't think they did. I think they did a poor job addressing the needs on the defensive side right there. I know Kyle Pitts is the best tight end prospect we've ever seen, but at the same time, we wonder how much that impact is going to have when it particularly comes to Matt Ryan's future, who people keep saying even today on Good Morning Football, we're like, maybe Julio Jones could be traded or Matt Ryan could be traded. How does that affect the future right there? And so I don't think that draft really helped there. And then finally, let us go to the New Orleans Saints. And for the New Orleans Saints, I give them a B- for their efforts. Patrick Turner was a little bit of a stretch, but then again, when you talk about all these defensive players, particularly edge rushers, that came up with the medical reports, Azeez Ojulari was one of those people that had red flags on the medical reports. They needed to get a defensive end right there, so it may have been a little bit of a stretch, but it was probably maybe the best available on their board that didn't have red flags right there. Trying to see if there's any other ones to notice. Pete Warner, the linebacker from Ohio State. Adebo, the cornerback from Stanford. And then Ian Book I think is an interesting one, the quarterback from Notre Dame. Everyone talks about Jameis Winston. Could he eventually step up and be a quarterback? Because he was drafted number 1 overall for a reason, right? He had the talent to be the number 1 overall pick back in 2015 by the Buccaneers. It's just his decision making, I mean, is Sean Payton gonna fix that? Did being under Drew Brees for a year help fix that? We don't know for sure. Maybe that's why they lean towards Taysom Hill, But you look at Ian Book, the most winningest quarterback in Notre Dame history. That means he was more winning than Joe Montana, than Brian Quinn, 2 notable Notre Dame quarterbacks right there. A lot of people may, like I said, they'll be more focused on Taysom Hill since he started last year, and Jameis Winston because, like I said, the credibility of even being a first overall pick. But keep an eye on Ian Book when it comes to that quarterback competition in New Orleans. And so when I look at the NFC South right here, I know people think, the Buccaneers, they could win the NFC South. But they didn't even win the division last year. And that was with the 22 starters that they just re-signed this offseason. So I'm not really confident that the Buccaneers, even though they could win the Super Bowl, could win their own division. I'm just not confident enough. Maybe because of the whole COVID stuff, But maybe on their second year, maybe they can be more in sync. But since I'm not comfortable with that, I'm going to go with a team that I feel like has done so much in the last 2 years that I feel like they're ready to take the title. And that is Carolina Panthers. I think the Carolina Panthers could be ready to take the NFC South. You talk about Christian McCaffrey, the most explosive running back in the league. You talk about Sam Darnold. Imagine if he gets into a system like Matt Rule. You look at what happened with Baylor when he had Charlie Brewer, which I'll talk about him in a future segment. They had a heck of an offense at Baylor, And honestly, Charlie Brewer and Sam Darnold, they have similar play sets, which is kind of why I thought he would have been traded to Carolina in the first place. And so again, you add Terrace Marshall to the receivers they have with DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. And like I said, Matt Rule doing a heck of a job to build that defense for Phil Snow. And I just feel like the Carolina Panthers are ready to take that next step and win the NFC South. And that has been draft grades. We are done talking about the draft, finally. So that means we can start talking about anything we want. And like I said, I can start talking about the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers. What's the relationship going on there? I might be a little bit late to the game on that, but again, I just was focused on getting these draft grades out, and I'll get to that. Also, when I talk about quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers, I'm going to talk about the state of the entire, concept of quarterbacks and why I feel like they don't get the respect that they deserve despite being very valued. This has been your Average Joe Sports Network, and have a good day, everybody.